Well, hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. His Eminence, Mr. Rayo, will be arriving shortly. So I'll take this opportunity to tell you to go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube channel, Joe Rayo Weather, which he has started, and he's got a few videos up there. I don't know if he's put up any weather videos yet, but I imagine that he will at some point. And of course, you will find him here from time to time. We've been doing it. This will be the third night in a row. Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The third night in a row that we're doing the show together. And also, I want to give a big welcome to those of you watching from the Meteorologist Joe Chaffee Weather app. You are watching it live. And we did some of that last winter. We're going to be doing more of that when appropriate, weather-wise, when there's stuff going on. And, of course, it always goes up there immediately after the live stream is done. So if you miss it, you could either watch it on YouTube on your phone, but you could also watch it right off the Meteorologist Joe Chaffee Weather app, which is free. So download it from Google Play or from the App Store. And also download Angry Ben's weather app, the Angry Weatherman, which is also a free weather app. So you will always have a hand in something weather-wise. Just in case one app goes down, you got the other one for a backup. And one last thing is my weather platform on Patreon, which is continuing to grow. We're very happy about that. So by all means, that's a more weather-intensive platform. We do extra weather stuff that you won't find on my website, you won't find on my on Facebook or anywhere else, just for Patreon members, including a Weather in 10 video, which we did today, talking about the weather system for next Monday and Tuesday that we're going to be looking at. So, he should be here. I'm not sure where he is. No, I can't even. I hear the door. There he comes. He has to make an entrance. I was getting panicky here. I promoted your YouTube channel, just so you know.
Whatever.
Oh boy, we're in a good mood today? What's the matter?
Nothing else.
What?
Nothing. It's just another day, another dollar.
After taxes or before?
Yeah.
Well, come on, you got to.
I had to pay my taxes.
Oh.
That's the one drawback of paying off your mortgage.
You still got to pay your property taxes.
Right, and it all comes in one big lump.
Well, that's true.
And it's a big.
Well, you didn't think you were going to stop paying your property taxes when you stopped paying your mortgage.
No.
All right, let's take our energy up.
Yes.
Everybody's so happy that we're doing 3 shows in a row. We're also live on the Meteorologist Joe Chaffee Weather app right now. And we're also welcome to my Facebook audience because I put the link up at 7 o'clock, so they're probably jumping for joy as well.
Yes. Well, it's a Thursday.
Okay.
So
it's going to be that kind of night.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get started. And one of the things here that struck me, Mr. Rayo, was the fact that nobody is up with a winter weather advisory anywhere in the Northeast.
That's kind of amazing, isn't it? Sometimes
you would think somebody would have had it.
Sometimes these weather service offices, they say, well, let's put it up just to be on the safe side. But yeah, that's kind of amazing that for tonight. Well, it's not. You look at this, it's not going to amount to anything really. Just some wet snow, and it's going to melt upon hitting the ground. So there you go.
I'm just checking while
Syracuse?
This is Syracuse. I just pulled up the Armory cam.
I've been there.
And when I pulled it up earlier this afternoon when I did the Weather in 10 video, it was snowing. It's not snowing there now. It's over with and the ground is wet. So I don't think anybody wants to see Armory Square?
Yes.
I don't think anybody wants to see Armory Square.
I was there
unless it's snowing.
I was there 5 years ago. My wife and I, we went to the New York State Fair, which is staged near Syracuse, New York. Very nice.
Nice.
At that time of the year. This is late August, early September.
Oh.
You want to go there in January or February?
Well,
be my guest.
This cold high, by the way, this cold air is moving pretty far south. And Monet Poré, you're getting the cold in Atlanta certainly tonight. You've got frost advisories up from coastal North Carolina across much of South Carolina, the northern half of Georgia, Alabama, and into Mississippi. So this first shot does make it fairly far south. The next shot for next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, that gets even further south. That's an even stronger cold high that's coming down.
And I was wondering whether or not tomorrow night, who in our immediate area will have some kind of a frost or freeze advisory in effect.
I think
because mostly the Hudson Valley, now the growing season has ended, but maybe for New York City proper?
Well, New York City's the only one they do have. Well, I don't know what Mount Holly's going to do or how many counties are left for their area, but New York City, it's only two, just a couple of the boroughs that didn't get below 32. So they're the only ones with they were up with a freeze watch tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it. So I think everybody's pretty much gotten below 32. What do you think about weather-wise tomorrow with respect to temperatures? Do we get out of the 30s or don't we?
Well, I think it should be a bright day, a sunny day. I think there'll be a few spots that'll get to above 40 degrees, but with the way the wind will be blowing tomorrow, gusting to over 30 miles an hour from the north-northwest, obviously we're going to see chill factors of around or even below freezing. So the interesting thing is that tomorrow and Saturday will be very similar in terms of temperatures, but Saturday will feel a lot better. If for nothing else, hardly any wind on Saturday of significance, so it will feel like it's around 40 as opposed to tomorrow. You're out there in the sun and that wind blowing, it'll feel more like 30. And then Sunday, an even bigger jump. The temperatures, the actual ambient air temperatures will jump into the 50s probably, so that'll be probably the nicest day of the weekend if you're going to be doing anything out of doors.
Monet Poré says that she loves the fact that I can pronounce her last name because most people can't. Italian native speaker here, so I know how the vowels work. A, E, I, O, U. Okay, in terms of the sound. So, having spoken Italian as a child before I spoke English, and then taking 3 years of Italian. 3 years of Italian in high school.
Do they do that anymore?
I don't think they have it in it. Or at least
I
a lot
remember
of schools
growing up.
don't have it anymore.
You and I were growing up, and in our high schools, they would teach Italian, French, German, for goodness sake.
Yes.
And, of course, Spanish. And now I don't think any of those Romance languages, except for Spanish, are taught anymore.
Yeah, it depends. It varies from school to school, because I went to Catholic school. Doug Crum corrects me on that. That's a freeze watch up in northern Georgia, and not the frost advisory. So that's a freeze watch. Thank you, Douglas, for letting me know. And by the way, don't hesitate, folks. Sometimes, as perfect as we are, we do occasionally slip. So if we do make an error, by all means, point it out. And I've got my phone now, so I got my phone with me so I can watch the chat.
He's watching the picture on the screen. He's watching his phone.
Right, I'm watching the chat.
It's amazing technology.
Okay. It's a few seconds behind.
Yes,
Isn't that exciting? So that's how you look.
So if I bat my head like that, it won't come up on your screen until like 5 or 10 seconds later, right?
Yeah. See, I just put my phone.
There it is. His phone up
so
there.
There you go.
There's the bat right there.
Okay, very good. It's all fun and dandy.
Yes.
Let's see. Reaver says Italian women are the best cooks. I wouldn't disagree, but I have to tell you there are a number of folks of different nationalities that cook exceptionally well, and the food is amazing.
I heard there's a restaurant down in Harlem. I think the name is, what a coincidence, Rayo's. Yeah, so that's...
It is yours.
Well, the name is.
Yes. And unfortunately not much beyond that. The cash register isn't.
True, absolutely.
All right, so rolling along, we are seeing some weather going on tonight. There's not a whole lot happening from the standpoint of severe weather. Just to bring up the Storm Prediction Center's map, Joe, is just a small area there of marginal risk down along the Mississippi and Alabama Gulf Coast, and that's about it. Everybody else, we're getting a time of year where thunderstorms are few and far between. Not only will we have days where there's no severe weather forecast, but we're pretty soon going to have days where there are no thunderstorms forecast. Period. Yes. So that is definitely coming. So we've got this weather front that is moving through, and we're going to disappear now. We're going to go to the satellite view here. But we got this weather front that's coming through, and one of the things I pointed out tonight on my weather show, in terms of the nature of this particular system, if you could see, you could take almost a ruler from Nova Scotia and take it southwest down into Texas. It's a flat. You have a cold front that's very flat. When I say flat, the clouds themselves, it almost looks like a giant rectangle laying on its side. And there's a little wave on it, but the wave isn't really buckling the front. It's not strengthening or intensifying. You're not seeing any rotation here. The wave is basically a mechanism to just kind of shift all this to the southeast, which it's going to do, because you're getting this nice solid push of very chilly air that is setting up here all across back through the north, all through this area here. This is all cold air. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. There you go. There's your cold air, and that's all coming in. Some of it is coming to the east, and some of it is pushing to the south. And this is the product of this upper air pattern that we're in, this negative East Pacific oscillation.
And the thing is also is that this first shot is not going to last all that long. As I said, we're probably going to jump back into the 50s on Sunday. In fact, you know what? Once we have all the cold and wind to deal with tomorrow, and still the cold, although not much wind, but still for this time of the year, 10 degrees below normal on Saturday, to bounce back to the 50s on Sunday, people might actually begin to doff their overcoat and sweaters and think that spring is on the way. But we've got the second shot of cold air that's coming in for the middle of next week, and that shot looks to be quite a bit more prolific than what we're about to experience tonight and tomorrow.
And if you look on the satellite loop on the upper left, on the Pacific side, you can see the action here of the next round of energy that is moving into the northwest. It's going to help to set up this next cold high that's going to be building down.
Right.
And on the surface map tonight, which is right there, it is that high is pretty dominant here. There you go. Covering a lot of territory. It goes all the way back to the Rockies. Are you starting to see some warmer air trying to come up on the west side of this actual high, and then you jump over the other side of the warm front, and it is 50s and 60s, but east of the Rockies, you've got all this cold air, the coldest air now moving into the lakes. So this is at 5 o'clock this afternoon, where temperatures were, looks like from Chicago, draw a line from Chicago to Detroit, from there north and west, it's below freezing and down in the 20s, and you start to get into some teens up into the Dakotas, and low teens, and probably even a few single digits in Canada. Again, these are daytime temperatures, so we're obviously going to get colder at night. But it's a pretty decent shot of cold air for this time of year.
It is pretty decent, and it is cold, and this is to be expected now as we get deeper into the fall season. The halfway point of fall, in fact, or autumn, was around, yesterday, I believe. Yesterday or the day before. So we're halfway through fall. We're heading for winter. It just amazes me now that, as opposed to, years back, when you had this kind of an outbreak, you say, oh, yeah, it's going to get cold or whatever like that. Now, it even is in making national headlines, on the national newscast.
Yes.
They're talking like it's nuclear fallout.
Well, they figured out.
It's going to get cold. It's going to get cold, Barbara. That kind of thing.
Like it does every November.
Right.
Although, this actual pattern we're in is a bit unusual in terms of the anomalies.
I understand
but that happens, it doesn't happen every year or every other year, but it does happen.
It's anomalous, but it's cold. That's what you would anticipate as we get deeper into the fall and getting closer to the winter season. This is going to happen. But
Kenneth Corden is in Ovid, New York. He says he's down now to 28. So he's definitely in the colder air. And you can see on the surface map that flat wave I was talking about, one low center in western Massachusetts, another low center down in northern Alabama. But it's not like you've got this 1,000 isobars around. But he says it's too stinking cold for the first week of November. I'll grant you that. Is it headline? Once upon a time, just on that subject, Joe. You know what? If this were the second or third week of continuous cold air, fine. You put it on the news. But this is a shot of cold air. It comes down. The hyperbole's out of control.
As I said, by Sunday, 50s, people think that spring is right around the corner. People will be out doing whatever they would normally do. And so many people today they saw the Christmas tree in Florida, New York, the Christmas tree that's going to be standing in Rockefeller Center. And it seems to me like Christmas time, the Christmas season's coming earlier and earlier and earlier. So here's something, folks. If you had nothing to do on Sunday with temperatures in the 50s, why not break out your Christmas decorations and put them up while it's still reasonably mild out there?
Monet Poire asks, she has some butternut squash still in the garden. Should she pick them, or can they stand the freeze?
Well, I don't know. Tonight it's going to be one thing. Temperatures will be locally like.
Well, now she's down in Atlanta now.
Oh, you're in Atlanta. So,
right. So she's got 2 nights of cold weather.
Right.
Pick them.
Right. Well,
don't take the chance. If you leave them out and they go bad, then you're going to feel bad. So I would pick them.
Tomorrow night it's going to be like 20 degrees in many outlying areas of our immediate viewing region. By far and away the coldest night we've seen so far coming up tomorrow night. Timothy
Veltman, and this is, by the way, a result of that negative EPO, by the way, the East Pacific Oscillation, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. He said he saw a video from Winnipeg in Canada of gas pumps with a sign of them saying "pumps frozen." Sorry for the inconvenience. That's got to be weird for them.
Does that really happen? I know that in parts of the northern plain states, people who park their car, they plug the car in order to prevent the engine block from cracking in extreme cold. I've never heard that, though, with gas stations. You would figure that they would have something to turn a switch and keep the gas.
I don't know how that works. Or maybe whatever they needed to turn the switch on, it wasn't working, which could be a reason. We've got Tammy Rousseau on, and she says hello. And Dennis Cassia, your buddy, wants the scoop on Monday morning.
Dennis is a very assiduous, a very active amateur astronomer, and as I mentioned a couple of days ago, on Monday we're going to have the very unusual and rather rare transit of Mercury. Mercury, the disk of Mercury, appearing as a tiny black dot, is going to appear for 5.5 hours to cross the disk of the Sun. Don't look directly at the Sun at this. You'll have to project the image using a telescope. But the next time this is going to happen is in the year 2049 for our part of the world. And I don't think neither Dennis nor myself, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm going to be around in 2049. But in any case...
Why do you think of these things?
Well, I'm going to be... How old am I going to... Well, I won't say how old I'm going to be. I'm going to be very, very old if I make it to 2049.
Well, maybe the network will pick us up and we'll still be on.
Anyway, but the weather, he's interested in the weather, and I think, Dennis, we're going to have a cold front come through first thing on Monday morning. It's not going to move very far off to the east. In fact, that's the system that's going to set us up for something interesting maybe on Tuesday.
All right,
right now I think we'll have some cloud cover to start the day on Monday, but the clouds should break at least enough so that you'll be able to see the Mercury transit later on in the morning or early in the afternoon.
On the southern end of this front, you've got all these showers running from Virginia, northwestern Virginia, down through western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, northwest Georgia. This is a few heavier showers in there, and you got some isolated thunderstorms. Well, actually, it looks like some what SPC might call line segments of thunderstorms popping up in southeastern Louisiana and along the Gulf Coast. Nothing in Florida. Some action going on along the Texas coast, the southern end of this frontal boundary, and looks like a little bit of snow in the upper and lower peninsula of Michigan. We won't go down that particular road again. And then remember from yesterday, and that's it. So the radar's quiet everywhere else, and that will take us to the weather pattern going forward. And there's a couple of things I want to bring up, but I want to do it off camera first, as I wrote about it and I made some graphics. I forgot to bring the graphics up, so I'm going to bring the graphics up now. But what are your thoughts about the next 5 days on how things are going to evolve?
Well,
this way you can say something while I'm pulling graphics up.
Oh, thank you. Well, it depends upon which model you look at. This afternoon we were looking at the American model, the GFS, and it is trying to suggest that there could be several inches or more of snow awaiting us Monday night into part of Tuesday of next week, based upon a wave of low pressure that's going to develop along that front that I just mentioned coming through on Monday. But the problem is that some models have that storm either over us or just to our east, in which case it would be cold enough for the white stuff. But there are other models in the European and especially the Icon model, the German computer model, is pushing this storm pretty well west of us and suggesting that, hey, this may be more of a rain situation on Tuesday as opposed to a mixed bag of snow or rain or just all snow. And it's still but 4 or 5 days out. We still have time to wait to see how the other models trend toward this. But if there's going to be an unsettled day next week, it'll probably be Tuesday with that storm, which is anticipated, Joe. I saw on the hand-drawn prog out of Washington, they placed the center of that low-pressure system literally right on top of the New York City metropolitan area, which would suggest, maybe a start as rain and then a switch over to snow.
Right.
It's still, we still need another few more days to consider what this is all going to, what's going to come about out of all of this.
All right. So one of the things that when I talk about the long range, I brought this up a few times, is the fact that we have all these indices that everybody references, and one of them, the Pacific North America Index, the East Pacific Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is probably the one that all the East Coast weather people talk about the most, and there was a graphic I made. I'm really mad now because I made this graphic today and I didn't load it, so I'll have to just kind of do it by memory. All right, so let me bring up the screen here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And the big player right now is the East Pacific Oscillation, and you can see it here on the. This is from the GFS model ensembles from last night, and what these oscillations, these pressure, basically look at pressure patterns in different parts of the northern hemisphere, and they show when those pressure patterns are out of whack. And the East Pacific Oscillation is calculated over a geography that includes much of the East Pacific Ocean from all the way down to 20 degrees north, which is the latitude of Hawaii, and all the way out to Hawaii to about the west coast, and then goes as far north as all the way up to the Gulf of Alaska. So when there's higher than normal pressures in general in that net geographic area, the East Pacific Oscillation will go negative. And when it does that, in a big way, it goes strongly negative, which is where we're going to be in 2 more days, be around the 10th, the 9th and 10th, where you see that spike down under minus 200. So that is illustrating that the upper pattern is dislodged in such a way that it favors cold air to come down. So if I bring up the upper air that matches with that, so this is how the jet stream pattern looks, and of course this is the area pretty much what we're talking about that is goes into measuring something like that. This area in here.
Right.
I have it off a little bit. It's actually in 2 pieces. There's a top part that is monitored, up in just like this zone, and then there's a bottom part that's monitored down to about here. This is the most relevant areas. So this is net higher than normal pressures. And you can see that here because you got this ridge that's up, especially strong up in this northern part. But what that has done now, if you follow the lines, and that would be the flow, the jet stream flow, counterclockwise around low, our surface air is coming from up here. And this has been, this negative East Pacific oscillation has actually started developing back toward the end of October, and now
Right.
it's in full force.
Right.
So this is setting up these weather systems that have been coming through, Joe. And I always talk about how when you're in a pattern, the things that happen in that pattern, they may not happen exactly, but they tend to rhyme. Mm-hmm. So we're getting these cold fronts coming through with these waves developing on it, and it becomes a race. Cold air, does it get in here first, or does the wave go by first? In the instance today, at least for our neck of the woods, the wave came first, then the cold air.
Right.
The question is, when we go into next week, when the next trough drops down, and you see it here, that drops down from Canada and into the Northeast, is this going to be an instance where the cold air gets in here first and then the wave? And that's really the big question here. And models have been just doing their usual back and forth, showing you the different range of possibilities. And I still think it's Thursday. I think we still have at least another 2 full days of model runs before,
Right.
or maybe not even into Sunday.
I agree.
For this to play out.
I mean, as I mentioned before, with the differences between the GFS and the Icon, if you believe the GFS, it could start snowing here Monday night and carry over into part of Tuesday with some significant accumulation. Meanwhile, the German model, the Icon model, actually keeps us dry through Monday night and through a good part of Tuesday, and when it finally does begin to precipitate, it precipitates in the form of rain because the system, the wave, is actually off to our west. We're on the warm side of the wave. But again, that's going to be positioning. Where will the trough be? Where will the surface development be? And again, 4 or 5 days out, the models are having a tough time in coming up with some kind of there's a large, well, not maybe a large, but a significant amount of discontinuity among the various models, and let's just wait until the NAM kicks in with its own
Right,
opinion
and
in a
when
few
you know
days.
what, when the teleconnections are stretched, like the EPO is, when they're outside that range of, they go plus 200, minus 200, when they start to go close to the tops of or bottoms of their ranges, or even exceed their normal ranges, where they're talking about maybe more than one standard deviation of where they usually are.
Right.
That's where that's when I think models behave uncontrollably.
Right.
They can't really handle that because they're looking at a situation that really doesn't happen too often, so they don't quite know how to grasp it. And I think that's why you see the model volatility.
And you have a teleconnection, let's say on one model run, you'll have 2 systems, 2 streams coming together and making a monster or a major storm system, and then 12 hours later, the very same model doesn't pick up on that because they keep the two streams separate.
Right, or the upper trough is in a different position, so
Right.
instead of having a coastal low, you have an inland low, or you have no low at all. But let's take everybody through the models. By the way, when we speak of our area, we're generally talking for us geographically. It's eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, and we're kind of smack right in the middle of that. But of course, we talk about weather all over the U.S. because it's not only relevant to you if you don't happen to live in this area, but it's also relevant to us because what you get oftentimes is what we wind up getting a day or two later.
Right.
So here's our front for tonight. Again, that flat look. You don't see any really wrapped up low. The cold air comes down behind it. I'm going to switch to the radar. Radar's always
Even
better.
this particular system, the last couple of days, the models were suggesting that there would be by tomorrow morning a rather significant storm system.
Right,
in the
back
Gulf of
days
Maine.
ago.
Right, and where is it?
Well, a developing low, and I think part of that problem is the fact that you have this split flow, and your models don't have tough times with split flows because you got all these short waves running around, so they key on different ones. But this is an instance where it didn't come out, it didn't happen at all. This system actually came out rather weak. The precip was very robust on the radar earlier today, back out to the west. back over through Oklahoma and Texas as you go, earlier on. But as it moved to the east with no real development, it just pretty much fell apart. The precip is just kind of languishing
Right.
as it moves on through. And of course, we're going to have these northerly winds tomorrow, so in comes the cold air. And here's the center of your high is in northern Missouri. You still got some leftover precip down in South Texas. Now, that high is going to move offshore Saturday, so this cold air mass moves out. Looks like the frontal boundary gets down, down into at least central Florida. So that cooler air makes it pretty far to the south. Maybe not the freezing line, but certainly the cooler air. And as you pointed out, Sunday's the day where we warm up. Now here's the next Arctic boundary that is coming down. This is Sunday afternoon. And you've got this big high. Again, this is the GFS's view. So you've got this big, very cold high. This air mass is actually colder than the one that we're experiencing for tomorrow and Saturday. That Arctic boundary gets through. This is Monday morning. So it looks like it's through and kind of extends down through here. And here's the big question. Cold air is spreading east. Cold air is plunging south. So does the cold air get in here before some kind of wave gets generated on this and moves out to the northeast? That's our big question that we're not able to answer at this point.
And the icon, though the German model, and I think to a lesser degree the European model, they don't really bring that front too far east of us. In fact, I think they actually have it subside right over us or near to us. So that allows the next wave, as it's coming north and eastward along that front, to actually take that front and buckle it back to the west,
Right.
and place us in a warmer airflow. Which is why on Monday temperatures could actually be back up to near or above 50. Even
If that boundary doesn't
Yeah.
get through, yeah.
Right.
Scott Briller points out, by the way, this is an interesting statistic. So if we were to get snow on Monday night, Tuesday, and it were to be on the order of say 3 inches. New York City has never had back-to-back Novembers with 3 inches or more, ever, in 150 years.
That's amazing.
So that would be a first.
So normally when you see a year like last year when we had 3 inches of snow, you say, well, that's not going to happen for a while again. That's not going to happen for another
So to
year.
have back, if we
8 or
get
10
if we get
years.
accumulating snow in the month of November, if we get a 3-inch snowfall between now and the end of the month, it would have been the first time ever that New York's gotten back-to-back snowfall. Now here on this instance with the GFS, you see that wave. A wave starts to develop, and this actually starts forming just to our south on early Tuesday morning.
Right.
And we kind of catch it. The bulk of the development is probably going to get caught more out to our northeast. But if it starts this far south, then you could wind up with at least a burst of snow for a few hours anyway, until the low gets going and then heads up to Nova Scotia. And then, of course, now at this point, the big high has come down, and all that cold air has moved all the way down into northern Florida and covers a good portion of the eastern half of the United States, east of the Mississippi, by the time we get to Wednesday. Although the warmer air is going to start moving up into the plains. There's a bit of a warm front in here somewhere. But that's what the stuff that you see back out through the plains. But that's a pretty decent shot of
what
cold
you're
air
seeing-
coming down.
Yeah, but what you're seeing here, this is Wednesday now. Basically, that's what you're going to be seeing on Saturday, I think, in a not as robust version.
Right.
But we're going to have the high building off the mid-Atlantic coast on Saturday, and the return flow of southerly winds bringing in the warmer air on Sunday, eventually leading us into this next impending shot of colder air. And in between that, we have the Tuesday night question, the Monday night, Tuesday question mark as to exactly what kind of precip we're going to get.
There are differences in the strength of the upper air between the GFS, the European, and the ICON model that are driving the differences that you see as far as the surface. Now, here's what Joe was talking about. Remember, the GFS has the Arctic boundary through New York City and offshore on Monday morning. The ICON model at this point is the Arctic boundary is still back in western New York and it's in northwest Ohio and cutting through central Illinois
Right.
and Indiana.
Right.
We still have southwest winds here.
Right.
It's trying to imply, in my view, that the more of the cold air is going to try to go south first than go east, and as a result, you wind up. You can see that it's dropping in the trough. If you look at these, the blue dotted lines are what we call thickness lines. It basically is a measure of just how thick that cold layer is, and the trough in the upper atmosphere usually matches up close to the thicknesses. It's pretty far to the west on the icon model, so it doesn't bring the Arctic boundary here through until Tuesday. This is Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
It's still barely through here.
And look what it's doing. It's bringing in a band of moderate to heavy rain, for goodness sake, not snow.
And goes, well, because your frontal boundary is here.
Right.
And your low is up already up the St. Lawrence Valley, and you've got brutally cold air coming into the northern lake for this time of year anyway, into the northern lakes. I mean, that's a 498 thickness. How many times do you see a 498 thickness in November? Not
Right.
very often. So it's doing that because the models have similar looks to their upper airs, but there's enough differences between the two that are significant in terms of the outcome. I will just say that this is actually reminding me of this particular case earlier this week when we had the Icon model way too deep. Remember, the Icon had that 972 low in the Gulf of Maine.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
So for this first thing, but we had a couple of runs where the Icon model was way overdeveloped with the northern feature, and you have to ask yourself, is it doing it again? It's got a what looks like an overdeveloped upper low sitting north of Sault Ste. Marie, and when we look at the GFS in comparison, so that's a sharp trough there. That's way to the west. That's not quite to Chicago, but it's between Detroit and Chicago. If you look at the GFS at the same time frame, it's got a much broader, weaker look to it,
Right.
and that's a huge difference in terms of how in terms of the outcome. You saw the surface of the GFS. This is Tuesday afternoon when it's already long gone. I mean, the low is out near Nova Scotia
Right.
and moving away, and the cold air is just pouring in, and also a 498 thickness into northern Michigan. But the Icon model, because it has that much deeper upper trough and it takes longer, it's got, like you said, it's a strong cold front.
Right.
It's a strong Arctic front with rain.
Right.
And the European,
SPC will be putting out enhanced on Tuesday for the eastern season.
yes,
Right?
of course. And the European is no help because the European is kind of splitting the difference between the two.
Right.
So what does it do? It puts a low right on New York City by Tuesday morning. So it would just, after this, it would just be, cold and dry, kiss it goodbye.
Right.
And also, it doesn't have, it's got the Arctic boundary close to the coast, but it looks like it stalls almost right on top of us. So we have to wait and see, is there, if that East Pacific oscillation stays negative, strongly negative a little bit longer, that could force more cold air to come east. So that's one of the things we're going to have to look for. To see if that's going to be the case, because you're not going to get any hope from the from anything going on in the North Atlantic. The pattern up there is too progressive. Everything seems to be moving along.
Right.
So
Well, I think you bring up a good point about the Icon, the German model, that it overdid this most recent system. It's probably overdoing what we're looking at for next Tuesday. But again, that's 4 or 5 days ahead. It'll be interesting to see how the other models play this out as we get closer. And again, when you're within 72 hours, the pattern they all start to end up on the same page
Right.
in terms of development and in terms of placement of these upper troughs.
Reaver 501 says he hates that these models waffle. Well, that's their nature, and Reaver, and that's why it's important to when you get a foothold on what is actually happening in the upper atmosphere overall, you can work through the waffling because you're going to know what to expect going forward. with the changes. So we've been saying for the last several days that we're seeing these moves back and forth, up and down. I think you're still going to see those moves back and forth. I think you're going to see those moves maybe the scope of them start to narrow a bit in the next 48 hours. But listen, don't be surprised. The new GFS is going to the new NAB starts out in about 8:45, and it's done by 9:45. Now that we're in standard time, thank God. And the GFS starts at 10:30. Don't be too shocked if you stay up late to see these things. If you wind up seeing some more changes, maybe another curveball being thrown along the way.
See, you just reminded that's the thing I miss, and we don't often see this now anymore on television today. But back in the day when we were really active and getting into this crazy world of weather, we used to watch Alan Casper, and Alan used to get back in the day the LFM,
yes,
the new model run, the new numbers. They were coming out like at 11:15, 11:20, and sometimes on some occasions with an impending storm, he would
we get the tip off.
We get the tip off immediately. He would say, "Well, based upon the numbers I've just looked at."
And the thing was, he was the only one doing that.
Correct.
No one else was doing
Correct.
that. So he would come on. I remember there was a number of instances where he came on, and when I started working, when I worked together when we worked at News 12 Long Island, and then when I went to Pix 11. I used to do the same thing. I used to pull the foose out right before the show and everything else, and it certainly came in handy. But of course, nowadays you can't even do that anymore because everything is so instantaneous. The map is on social media the moment it hits the wire.
Correct. The one time I remember the one night before an impending big snowstorm, Alan Casper actually brought the LFM and held it up to the camera. That. He said, as the LFM makes its New York television debut. And it just blew me away.
5 days from now is Javon Perry's birthday. And Javon is hoping, he's up in the Boston area, so he's hoping that on Tuesday that he gets some plowable snow and not some thunderstorms.
Oh. It's,
I think the icon, now of course bite my tongue for about to say this. I think the icon is probably not going to. It's overdeveloped.
That's right.
I think it's. Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's overdeveloped, and that the look is going to want to try to be flatter, and much like what happened with this particular system. And by then you have to be careful in the other direction. If it's too flat, you get, everything goes out to the south, and you wind up with snow in Virginia, which is something the European did last night, and you don't see a flake or an ice pellet in areas further north. So just to carry everybody through the long range, because after this goes by, there is going to be some a bit of a flattening or maybe a slight relaxation of the pattern, although this is on the European. There's another trough that drops down around day 10. If we look at the new GFS, interestingly enough, it has different ideas, but even here, there is a bit of a relaxation going on. There's still troughing that wants to be out in the Pacific. The Pacific, at least, is not turning into some kind of fire hose, so a relaxation is expected. You do have a general flow from Canada ridging up the west coast. The flow looks like it's split a little bit. Driving energy down into Southern California. We'll have to see if that's real or not. But looks like we might get some rearranging of things to some degree going forward. We'll have to wait and see.
You just reminded me. I posted this on my Facebook page today. An article that appeared in the Washington Post by the Capital Weather Gang about talking about...
I do read them from time to time. They're very good.
What is the absolute longest out in terms of long range that you could rely on a semi-accurate prediction of weather? And they said that in this article, they said maybe, if everything fell into place, maybe you might be able to go all the way out as far as 10 days. But beyond that, it's just totally, guesswork. And they mentioned AccuWeather because and they said that AccuWeather is actually, they offer...
They got that 45-day.
That 45-day forecast. And they said they're actually, diminishing their reputation by offering a forecast that's so off the wall.
But
so
you know,
far-
you
so
know
far
what,
advanced.
what's frustrating about it is that as off the wall as it is, for me, the concept, okay, and on weather apps with the long range where all the icons are model driven. I've occasionally will have someone say to me, I noticed that and then there'll be some arbitrary date, however many weeks from now, that there's a snowstorm for that date.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? You want to make a plan? You want to make plans based on that? Go be my guest. We here recognize the variability. Those of you who follow weather all the time, we work in it. We recognize the variability, the fluidity of it all, and the fact that you're talking about something where everything is changing constantly.
Right.
Every waking second, every molecule is changing. So the impacts are infinitesimal, and you're trying to stay ahead of all that. It's impossible to do outside. Even in the short range, it's difficult because then you're forced to get very, very specific. There's too much expectation in my view. Some people have maybe they just expect too much.
Right.
They want certitude.
Well, this is the era of instant gratification. That why can't you guys, with all of your great machines and all of your computer models, why can't you tell me if it's going to snow 2 weeks from next Thursday? It just doesn't work out that way.
No, it doesn't. David Schwartz mentions the fact, going back to what we were saying before, talking about Alan. He said he always found Ira Joe entertaining, especially when he drew on the clear had to write backwards.
Ira Joe used to do a shtick. I think it was on Channel 4 or Channel 7. I forget now what station he was on.
Didn't he work at all three?
Yeah, I think he did at one time. He had a plexiglass, and he used to draw. He had to draw backwards on the plexiglass with a grease pencil, so that you, the viewer, could see on this map, the way it should come up,
right
side up or whatever. Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Oh.
So that's pretty much. I mean, we kind of covered it all tonight. There's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot left for us to say. We can bring up, at least from the standpoint of the next 7 days, we can look at maybe we can get a clue from what WPC is doing, the Weather Prediction Center. There's oftentimes, we do like their work. And, okay, so the next 7 days, so the dark blue is a half an inch of liquid, and an inch of liquid is, you go 3/4 of an inch is that next shade of blue. So they got a half an inch there from coastal New Jersey. I don't think very much of that includes tonight because we're getting so little. So sort of hard to glean, to get something from there as to what they might think. Let me see if I could pull up their days 4, 5, 6, and 7. Hang on one second. I'm going to do it. I'll try to do it off screen. Okay, QPF. So we want day 3. So days 4 and 5. So that would be, and day 6 and 7. So it seems like there's an overlap here.
That's what we're talking about, like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So day 4 is Sunday night to Tuesday night, and they've got the dark green is 1/4 to a half an inch of liquid. And then day 6 and 7, they got another 1/10. So that would be from Tuesday. So they were a little slower as far as getting the system through, but they're not generating a whole lot of precip. So you can make an argument here, I think. Let me bring it up full screen so everybody can see. But this was, this is day 4 and 5 on their map. So this is Sunday night till Tuesday night. So the dark green is darkest green before the first shade of blue is 1/4 to a half in terms of liquid. Now I think you could make the argument that with the precip that low, that they might be looking at the idea that it will be colder. The colder air gets in here faster before the wave comes up. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Did you look at their winter probability?
Doesn't go out that far.
Yeah, it does.
Really?
Yeah. Go to forecast analysis over there.
Okay.
And go down to winter weather.
You keep secrets from me. I didn't know
I'm
these
sorry
things.
about that. Go all the way down. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. There you go. Day 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Oh, okay. So let's see what WPC has to say about that. Well, hang on there. So here is, we'll go to day 5. And, okay, so this is probability, correct?
Right.
All right, let me just see. Let me put the state boundaries on, and we'll put the probability count. All right. Does it look better with the contours or off?
Oh.
Off. Okay, so this is ending. This is Monday 7 a.m. to Tuesday 7 a.m. All right, so they're a little slow. They're showing the highest probability of snow in and around the lakes, and the 10 to 30% down to about the Catskills. You see where the line is, and then this is day 6. So they have a 10 to 30% chance for coastal New Jersey, back through Maryland, down into interior western half of Virginia, southern half of Pennsylvania, southern New England. So they have a 10 to 30% probability of snow.
Probability of exceeding 0.25-inch liquid
Oh,
equivalent.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Of snow and sleet or whatever.
Oh, all right. So it doesn't say that it couldn't be 0.2 or less than a quarter of an inch, but it's showing. They're showing something.
Something.
All right. So we've got things to look at for sure and to figure out going forward. It's nice to be in a way. It's nice that we're kind of busy with stuff this early.
Yeah.
I always that first one of the season is always a problem. It's like you haven't ridden a bicycle in a long time,
Right.
and you get on for the first time, and it's a little shaky, and that's sort of how we feel forecast wise, because we're kind of looking at things
I figure this would happen
for the first time in 6 or 7, since back last March, really.
something to take our minds off the fact that next week is our final week, but that's neither here
Ah.
nor there. So
Yes, it is. It is our final week next week on TV. I only and I'm here, so I didn't take any more time off.
oh, good.
Yeah, I know you're happy because when I go, and I know I'm happy when you're here, because when either of us take off, the other one has to do the other one's work.
Right.
But only for one more week.
But that's you've given me a very easy day tomorrow to what am I going to call for tomorrow night? Cold and clear,
Right.
and then less
Sun
wind,
and high clouds for Saturday.
sun and high clouds,
Clouds and
veil
high
something,
sun for Sunday.
whatever.
And then we'll be sitting there going through models.
In the Rocky Mountains, sunny, and the sunny mountains, rocky. That's
Yeah, nice. Martha Sandwall says hello. Welcome. I think you're new on the chat board. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I hope you you had to hit the subscribe button because you're on the chat board, and that's nice to see. And Scrub Keela is on tonight. I love some of these folks' names. Rainbow Citizen is on. Chris Alley is here. My buddy Chris. Kenny Salerno, who says no snow, please. And of course, all the regulars are here. Scrub Keela Fortnite says, "Do you guys remember the nor'easter that hit last year with the 4 nor'easters? That was a couple of years ago.
a couple of years ago. We didn't have the 4 nor'easter.
Right.
The 4 Easters were two years.
We have our 4 Easter mugs
Right.
to commemorate.
Correct.
Boy, that was a shameless plug.
Yeah.
We had that one burst of all these storms recently, and back through the end of October. So things have relaxed a little bit, and we're getting these weaker systems and cold fronts, but we're also getting plenty of cold air. Bob Mason on board, by the way. I want to say hello, and Erica Baker. She always posts a report on my Facebook page with regards to what's going on in her neck of the woods in Oklahoma, because as I said earlier, what happens there sometimes happens here
Charles
a
Galt
day or
says-
two down the road.
Charles Galt says, "Happy retirement, gentlemen." Well, I don't know about that, but that's. I don't know. Do you consider yourself retiring now after next week?
You know what? The way the way I'm looking at it is in terms of working for someone else. Yes, I'm done. Okay. I'm not. I don't want to do that anymore.
All right.
As far as working is concerned, not only does nothing change for me in terms of all the things that I do online, my YouTube channel, 3 websites, 2 apps, and a partridge in a pear tree, plus social media. That is going to be actually I'm going to be doing more, and I've got my subscription site as well, Patreon site.
Yes, Scott, I did read your article from the New York Times from 1981. I did see that, and it brought back lovely memories, considering that I remember saying to everybody in southern New England, don't worry about this. This isn't going to be a big deal. And by the end of that weekend, as the article pointed out, 2 feet of snow in Boston, the biggest snow they had since the blizzard of '78, in that December snowstorm of '81.
Joe, where are you, Joe? Another Joe. Hold on a second. Where did he go? Joe Ferranda. Sorry. Brain freeze. He asked to see the teleconnection, so I bought them up. And we talked about this earlier with the East Pacific Oscillation. These are snapshots. They're really not forecast tools, so not a good forecast tool, because it's done off of one run of models. This was from last night. So what you can see through the period on that particular run was that the Pacific North America Index remains mostly positive, so that would be suggestive of ridging in the west and troughing in the east. The NAO is weakly positive, so weather systems are moving along. It does trend toward neutral toward the end of the forecast period, and that East Pacific Oscillation, which I've said many times to me is the most important one that we showed earlier, is kind of off the wall, somewhat off the wall negative, over minus 200 on their reading, around November 9th, 10th, and 11th, which is, going through the weekend and into early next week, and then starts to climb toward the neutral line. Now, we could check this tomorrow based on tonight's run of the models, and we could see, especially in the longer range, you could wind up seeing a completely different outcome. And I'll just give you an example, because a couple of days ago, when the models were showing a very well-developed storm just off the East Coast with a big upper low dropping down, that drove the NAO index into negative territory around the 13th, 14th. Now that that's not happening, it's strongly positive. So you can see how these changes, these model changes and flip-flops impact the teleconnections on a run-to-run basis. So just bear that in mind. They're coincident indicators. They're not leading indicators about what might or might not happen. Just bear that in mind.
Okay.
All right. So any last minute thoughts before we say goodnight?
No, you and I will not be doing this tomorrow night because you're not here. What else is new?
Yeah. I'm here tomorrow night.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm not off tomorrow.
Are you sure?
Tomorrow's Friday.
Yes.
I don't have off tomorrow.
I thought you said you were taking off tomorrow.
No, I didn't. I never said any such thing.
Are you sure?
I swear I did.
And how about next week? Next week?
No, I'm here every day next week.
So you went through all of your...
No, I still have a week in hand, so if you get me annoyed, I may just call out sick.
So then we'll be here tomorrow night.
We'll be here tomorrow night and every night next week.
Right.
I will. Nick Cortez he'll be the last questioner of today's Jeopardy round. He's basically asking, is there a correlation between getting cold this early? Does it mean that the winter,
We said that last night. There are people out there who say, well, if it's so cold and we're getting all this wintry weather now, maybe there won't be anything left by the time we get into the real... There's no correlation there, believe me. I've thought about that way back when, but there have been some winters where it got off to a fast start, and guess what? It continued right on through most of the rest of the winter. There are other years, though, that doesn't
right.
happen. So,
all right, so we'll make Peter Anderson the last one. He says, why is the GFS so volatile with its model runs right now? When I was talking earlier about the teleconnections, you have them, the East Pacific Oscillation in particular, the pressure patterns out in the Pacific seem to be stretched to a bit of an extreme, and over the years, I've noticed that anytime we get into those instances where these teleconnections are out of control, outside of their normal range, or even outside of their normal above normal range in either direction, the models seem to go nuts. They seem to have a really tough time handling the outcome going forward. The variability in them seems to be much wider. So I think that's what we're seeing here, and I would expect that you'll probably still see some of that in the next 2 or 3 days, although we should start to see spreads narrow a little bit. And Reaver wants to know if you consider teaching an astronomy course at a community college.
That's a very interesting question, and I am seriously considering becoming an adjunct or approaching some colleges to be an adjunct both in meteorology and also in astronomy. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, I used to teach introductory meteorology at the Hayden Planetarium, and got a lot of people who actually, the only complaint was, I wish this was a longer course. It was only
That's
like
a nice.
6, 8 sessions.
That's a nice.
So
I wish this were a longer course at a cheaper price.
Yeah, but no, I think, and I already contacted one of our old professors, Stan Getzelman, who said he was going to write a letter of recommendation, and a couple other people. So yeah, if I find myself completely out in terms of broadcasting, if I can't find a broadcasting gig either on television or radio in the coming days and weeks, it may be time to go in front of the blackboard or the whiteboard now. There are no blackboards anymore. It's
all, yeah, you know what? It's all, iPads and things like that. So you better, Mrs. Rayo's going to have to get you all zapped up.
My son is in his 7th year of teaching high school physics. My daughter is now in speech pathology. She's in the, so why not their old man follow the kids into teaching?
You got to get technologically savvy.
Exactly.
They don't even hand in stuff on paper anymore. It's
right.
all, online.
I have a friend of mine who was teaching as an adjunct astronomy at one of the community colleges in the area.
Mm-hmm.
He, for homework, he handed out star maps and said, I want you to come back next week and tell me which constellations you found. You need to find 10 constellations. And one kid came back the following week and said, I don't understand these maps. I looked up in the sky and I didn't see any of those lines that
are... Kenny Salerno says, and pass this to Mrs. Rayo.
Yes.
I wish now we're now into we've just gone over an hour. I wish these shows were longer. They're great.
Oh, love it. Well, who was it this morning? I used to. This shows you the mind is the first thing to go. One of the people that were always, he's out on Long Island, and sometimes he puts on his own show. Probitsky?
Oh, Leon. Leon of Lindenhurst.
That's right.
Yeah, my buddy Leon.
He said he was watching our podcast from last night.
Mm-hmm.
He was up. He said, "This is great. I'm watching this now at 2:20 in the morning."
Well, he works late. He works till early morning hours.
Leon, thank you so much.
Mark G. Would like to let you know, by the way, that Western Connecticut State University is hiring in physics, meteorology, and astronomy.
Well, yeah, but that may be for a full-fledged person with a teaching certificate
And
or whatever.
a PhD.
A PhD or something like that. I would only go in as an adjunct. In other words, I don't need the certificate. I'm just going to go in there and blither for an hour or two. But that might be something I might put on my page next week. If you know any community colleges or any college in general that might be interested in having moi talk about astronomy or meteorology, let me know.
Oh, speaking of talks, by the way, I haven't mentioned it
yes.
at Bayonne Library in Bayonne, New Jersey.
That's on the 20th.
On Wednesday, November 20th at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And I usually show up about an hour and a half early, just to let you know. So if you come out a little bit before 7 o'clock, usually I'm hanging around somewhere, either in the building or just outside the building, or getting my stuff together. So by all means, come on down. That's the Bayonne Library in Bayonne, New Jersey, at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, November 20th. In early February, I will be at the Sachem Library on Long Island. I think it's February 4th. I'm not 100% sure. I have to double check with them, which I will do. And that's it. So we're good.
All right.
All right. So
we will be back tomorrow.
We'll be back tomorrow. You have, unless you annoy me between now and 10 o'clock, which you never do.
No.
But I also want to mention, by the way, if you haven't done it already, I hate to be in a scotch, but download the Meteorologist Joe Chaffee Weather app, which is free, which means it doesn't cost you a cent, okay? Free is free, all right? And that's on Google Play or on the App Store. And on Google Play, while you're there, if you've got an Android device, you can download Angry Ben's weather app, the Angry Weatherman. So you got those two apps. Ben does my nycweathernow.com website. And also my subscription platform above Joe's head, my Patreon platform, which is patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. You will find that on the descriptor to this live stream or the descriptor to this video if you're watching it on a replay. And that's my subscription site. Starts at $2 a month, unless you're somebody that needs one-on-one hand-holding during these snowstorms, and then there are slightly higher tiers for each hand. So just bear that in mind. Yes. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
Good night.